What's up, Vybez fam? Welcome to another episode of Vybez Shortz, a conversation series. I have my amazing friend and mentor and coach and all of the things that you are to me here on the program, Queen Maker herself, Miss Katie-Lynn. Thank you so much for being here, for being a part of this. I'm so excited to have you here because we're about to get it in. It's about to get combo. And I would like to welcome you to Vybez. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. As you were talking, I was like, this is the first time you're interviewing me, Peta, I think.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel honored. I'm excited.
I
know you are an awesome interviewer. So I'm legit, like, I wonder what she's going to ask.
Thank you, Katie. That means a lot coming from you. I appreciate that. Yeah. But yeah, when I thought of like the people that I wanted to have conversations with for the series, yeah, you were up there. I was like, Katie-Lynn, you're all about developing, making queens. And during this time, I know, some of us might not be in that space.
Yeah.
It's a challenging time, this pandemic. So I wanted to bring you on to offer your expertise and your queenness to this series, because I know a lot of women and probably men too will get a lot from this. So thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to dive into these questions and get to know you a little bit more, or have the viewers get to know you a little bit more. We cool.
Yes.
But yeah, so let's jump in. Let's.
Hey.
I want to say that I know I've told you the many ways that I feel about you being my friend in my life. But I want to share with the viewers how much of an impact you've had in my life and how much of inspiration you are to me, because we've met through Stretch 22, Preston Smiles coaching program. That was what, 3 years ago?
4 years ago.
4 years ago. Holy crap. That's crazy. So 4 years ago. And I remember seeing you do videos and things like that, and I was like, she's dope, man. Like, you exuded so much confidence, even though we were in a coaching program together, and you came through with all the things. But I really loved your confidence and your vulnerability, and just the way you were just true and authentic. And I was like, I identify with that. Like, I see myself in you. And I wasn't there at the time. I was just like, I was hiding. I was like, I don't want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
People everywhere, and everybody's loving on each other. I was not in that space. But as we got to know each other over the years, I've really gotten to know you, and we formed a very good connection and friendship. And I feel like you've just made such a difference. You just embody like Queen Maker. Like, that makes so much sense when you say it. I'm like, I see it. Like, you just embody a queen, and I love you so much for that. And you're just so in integrity. I dig that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and all the things. But I'm going to let you please introduce yourself to our viewers and what you're about. Please.
Yeah. Thank you, Peta. So I'm Katie-Lynn. I also go known as the Queen Maker, and I am a psychotherapist turned coach. So my background for the last 15 years has been in the study of human behavior, human thought, and then that evolved into the spirit and the body and how we communicate and how we show up in the world. And this idea that we are the common denominator in our experiences. And so if I am the common denominator, right, in that relationship and that relationship and that job and all of these places, if I'm the only person that I show up with, then maybe the problem or maybe the issue or maybe the opportunity isn't what's happening out there. Maybe it's what's in here. And that was the awakening that I experienced. And what brought me really into the coaching world was I had gone through all of this training and spent all of these years in school and learning about psychology and human behavior, and then getting into the workplace and working in jails and prisons and these different settings, and having the opportunity to actually have my own life break down on various levels and get to see, it's not enough for me to have the knowledge up here, in my head. It's actually gonna be more effective if I can sort of crack open these old places and spaces internally that maybe hurt or maybe feel scary or maybe feel vulnerable. And I take a look at what's there.
Yeah.
And I get really real with myself about where I've been, what my traumas have made me, what I've made it mean about me, what I desire, and who I want to be in this lifetime. And those are the questions that I ask and continue to ask myself. And those are some of the questions that I ask when I work with my clients. And really, for me, my work is not about giving you this amazing, incredible life. My work is about how do I reconnect you and open you up even more to your uniqueness and your authenticity and your voice and your freedom and your quality of life.
Yeah.
Right? Because when my life hit bottom, I had everything.
Yeah.
On paper, and that was the most confusing part, was I had everything on paper. I had multiple degrees, I had a great job, I was married, I had a son, I owned a home. I mean, I did all of the boxes that were in the quote unquote American dream. And I woke up and was just like, this feels like a nightmare. This is not what I intended to create at all. And I think so many of us are walking around sort of in this snooze. Where it's the uncomfortable feeling of living every single day on autopilot is so familiar that we forget it can feel better. That it could be more magical, more prosperous, more abundant, more connected, all the things, right? So that's really me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you for the details of how you've come to be now. But I feel like I want to ask you more about like your psychotherapy background and how you got there, because you started there and in person systems, and now you've progressed or transitioned into just helping women become the best version of themselves. So tell me a little bit about your psychotherapy background and how you even found an interest in that, where that started for you.
Yeah, that started for me. I've always been fascinated with humans and human beings, and I've always wondered what makes someone great and what makes someone not great, and who decides that, and how do they do it? Like I always wanted to know like the formula, and if there was one. And then when I got into high school, I was like, in high school, and I was getting good grades. I was going to get a full ride scholarship to play ball in college, and super excited. And then, the pressure comes in and they're like, well, what are you going to study? And I remember taking a psychology class in high school with this teacher who was just amazing. I forget her name, but she was so animated and she made psychology so fun. And I was just fascinated by the mind, and that you could have these people that were so intelligent that it actually made them socially awkward. And I'm like, well, that's wild, or you could have these people who their mind just worked differently and they just saw the world differently, and how certain experiences could shape and predict behavior in people. And so I had so much fun in that class. And I remember saying, if I was going to study something for fun for a really long time, it would be psychology. And when I got to college, I wanted to be pre-med because I love school. I love studying like the body and the mind and just learning, right? I'm like one of those seekers. I just like can't get enough. And then they said, in college, they're like, oh, you want to do pre-med? Okay, great. You need to take calculus. And I was like, no, I don't. No, I'm not. You will not find me in a calculus class. So I think I was like, okay, so what track could I take where I could study something I loved, right? And this is like the first signs of me sort of, I think, living into my coaching kind of essence is I'm like, I don't want this. It doesn't feel right for me. It's just like, I see it, I get the vision, I understand it, but like, here's my intention. My intention is to study something I love be able to get out of college and make great money doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to have some sort of like certification or license so that I'm always in demand.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was my thought logically.
Mm-hmm.
And I landed on psychology. And I remember looking at the books and going, I could do this. And so went and talked to my advisor, and I was like, I want to change my track. I don't want to go pre-med. I'm not trying to be in school for another 15 years. I
Mm-hmm.
want to start my life. I want to be out in, probably the next 4. And she said, well, if you go straight into your master's program, which is what I did right after I graduated my undergrad, she
Mm-hmm.
said, you can get licensed as a clinical social worker. You can operate as a psychotherapist, and you can make great money, have a private practice, and do what you want to do. And that was the line, was do what you want to do. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
sign me up. Where do I sign up for this? So that's exactly what I did. And I loved the classes. I mean, I loved studying about, just I love studying about the depression. I love studying about the anxiety, how it manifests, how it's,
Mm-hmm.
there's this biopsychosocial approach where everything matters, everything, what we put in our mouths, what we feed our minds, how we take care of our bodies, what our mom's hormones and neurochemical chemistry was when we were in her womb, what our grandmother's was, because technically we were in her womb,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
so how like all of this plays into our way of being, and then how do we navigate it?
Yeah.
What do we make it mean about us? And do we let it empower us, right? Because there's people who take these things and they say, oh, I'm going to make it like I'm going to make something great of it. And then there's some people who take it and go, I can't because depression runs in my family, or because alcoholism runs in my family, or because this, right? And so so I really began to dive in. And then as I got to work in the settings, right, like in the jails, I was always working in a locked facility of some sort. So I was in the jails for 5 years with the boys.
How did you end up there? Like, what did you choose? You chose that? You were like,
What,
I want to work with prisoners.
yeah, it was, I applied randomly. God has always taken my life and just sprinkled its own direction on there, right? Like, so I remember sitting in my master's program, and I actually wasn't going to be a psychotherapist. I wanted to be, my specialization in my master's program was community organization planning and administration. So I was going to be in the bigger agencies. I wanted to be up in administration because somebody told me that's where you make the money. You make the money in administration, and if you can do grant writing. So I was like, okay, I'll chase the money, and so I started to work in, they were like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And then I was like, oh my gosh, all the jobs are nonprofits, and nonprofits don't pay very well. And so I saw this opportunity to apply for this, this grant, I think it was, where if you signed up to work for Los Angeles County for a year, your first year out of grad school, they would pay you a stipend of $18,000 on top of your salary.
Nice.
And so I was like, I'm going to apply for that. Right. And then I got it. And then they were like, okay, you got to go to these interviews, right? And so I picked this interview for this setting, and I was like, yeah, I'll try it. Why not? And so that's what it was. It was working in the juvenile justice mental health camps in Los Angeles County. And I went on that job interview when I was at rock bottom. I literally went to that job interview with stitches in my face because I had almost killed my partner and I in driving while intoxicated. And he had to pull me from the car like maybe 3 nights before this interview. He pulled me out of the car, and he had to put me back in the car, and I was like fighting him when he was putting me back in the car, and I hit my eye on the top of the car. And it like popped it open. He had to take me to the emergency room. My parents came with me. I was belligerent drunk. It was awful. And thank God I didn't lose the eye. The doctor was like, you're so lucky you didn't lose your eye. And I went to that interview with stitches in my face, got the job, and started working. And my life was just kind of slowly breaking down because I had only taken in the knowledge intellectually. And I see this in so many people where it's like, oh yeah, I read that book. Oh yeah, I listened to that podcast. Oh yeah, I saw this person speak. Oh yeah, I did that worksheet, and it's like, there's such a big difference between getting it up here and actually living it in your life. And I got it up here but there was so much trauma, and there was so much shame, and there was so much fear.
Yeah.
And I had no idea who I was.
Right.
And so it was like, I'll just drink it away.
Yeah.
I'll just drink it away. I'll just take antidepressants. I'll just take anti-anxiety medications. I'll just numb it out. Like, just get myself to stop feeling this ache, you know? And I know that there are women, and probably some men out there that resonate with this. There's just this ache where it's like, I know there's something more. I know there's something asking for me to look at it inside, and I just don't want to. And so that was the beginning, really. That was the beginning of the end of my life as I knew it up until that point.
Okay. So once you shifted into that program in the prison systems, was it a jail or prison system?
It was a jail. So that was the jail.
Into the jail systems, did something shift for you where you're just like, okay, I'm going to get my life together now that
but it was a big shift. So I take the job, and I'm going to see if I can remember the dates correctly. I start the job on October 13th.
Okay.
I think I accepted the job late September. I want to say September 26th, somewhere around there.
Okay.
I start working the job October 13th. Now, remember, I was wrestling with binge drinking. Looking back, I'm what could have been diagnosed as an alcoholic.
Okay.
Because that threshold for what constitutes someone who would be identified as an alcoholic is how does it impair their ability to function on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
So I wasn't physiologically addicted to alcohol, but it was definitely a part of my lifestyle, and to a degree that it was inhibiting my ability to really thrive.
Right.
So get the job interview, get the job, start the job on October 13th. On October 26th, I find out I'm pregnant.
Wow.
I find out I'm expecting my son. And
holy crap. Okay.
This whole time, I thought I was on birth control. I thought that I had a tumor. I was like, that's it. I have cancer. It's a tumor in my uterus. I don't know what's happening. It's stolen my period. I don't know what's going on.
Wow.
And that realization, like, rocked my world, because where I was at that point in my life, I had when I saw the test, I had my first panic attack. I literally almost collapsed to the floor. His father caught me before I got there, thank goodness. And I knew that this was meant for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why. And I was so confused, because I was like, literally, like, I was like, why, God? Like, I felt so unfit to be a mother at that point in time. I'm like, do you see my life? You know, like, I can barely take care of myself.
Yeah.
And so at that point, that's really what started me on this path of it shifted everything about me. Because in that moment, in the split second, my life became bigger than me. It was like, oh, it's no longer about just me.
Yeah.
And I started to ask different questions. I started to ask not just what do I want for me, but what do I want for this little baby that's coming into the world? What kind of life do I want him to have? What kind of beliefs do I want him to have? What kind of models for human beings do I want him to have? What worldview, right? And then that's when all the psychology came flooding back in, really. And it began to go from intellectual knowledge to like, oh, I need to live this. I need to be aware of the words that I use, the way that I'm living my life, my routines, my habits, my drinking patterns, my depression, my anxiety, my everything. I've got to look at it. It took me from being totally numb to all of a sudden feeling and being aware of a world that I was completely unconscious to, like this, you know?
Yeah.
And shortly after that, got married, bought a house, had my son, bought a house, and I would just kept trying to put a Band-Aid over it. You know what I mean? I just kept trying to, like, maybe if I get married, I'll make it right. Maybe if I buy a house, I'll make it right. Maybe, right? And that was the thing, I thought that there was something wrong with me. I had this core belief that there's something wrong with me. I gotta fix it. So I was always trying to fix something, but you can't fix what's not broken. So if you're always trying to fix something, it's like, you know, going after that thing that is just continues to escape your grip. And it's like, you're not broken.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, there was this moment where his father and I had gotten into an argument, and, you know, we had basically hit our sort of pinnacle, right? Like, I had found some messages that I didn't really want to find, but I needed to find. I just hit my breaking point in the relationship.
Yeah.
And I remember having a night where I drank excessively, and then came home, fell asleep, woke back up in the morning, looked in the mirror, and just, I had this moment where I was just like, where did I go? Like, who is that? Where did I go? And what the heck am I doing here?
Yeah.
You know, like,
Was
this
this
is
before
not
or after your son was born?
after. So this was when he was he had just turned a year old. He was probably 13, 14 months old.
Wow.
Because I remember being out the night before, and I didn't want to come back. I didn't want to come back home. I was like, literally, I was like thinking about, like, am I going to drive this car like into a wall, off a bridge? Like, what am I going to do? Like, having those really dark thoughts. And then I remember seeing an image of his face come through, and I was like, I got to go home. I got to get home.
Wow.
You know? And got home, and then fell asleep, woke back up the next morning. It was just like, this ain't it.
Yeah.
This ain't it. You know, and having that moment, right? That realization that was the first time I think I ever realized, like, oh, Katie, you're the common denominator. Like, in all of these situations, the through line is you.
Yeah.
And that's a big old piece of humble pie.
Yeah.
Like, that's a tough pill to swallow. Yeah. When you're in the throes of things, you know, and like, to look, and there was a real period of time where I just was like, I can't believe I got myself here, you know, and working through so much shame and so much guilt, and learning to forgive myself, right? And learning that forgiveness is a practice, right? And that forgiveness doesn't mean I've accepted and I condone the way I behaved. In no way do I condone the way that I behaved.
Yeah.
I got to let it go so that I can create some space for what's true for me to come through. So it was a ride.
Girl. You took me through that. Imagine you yourself going through that.
But
I find it interesting that you had a moment when you found out that you were pregnant with Elijah, that you had that moment of realization of who you were being and who you wanted to become, but you hadn't still discovered that underlying story that you'd been carrying about not knowing who you are. And so finally realizing that after he was born, I thought that was interesting, because I was like, oh, you had the change, you had the awareness, but there was still something there underlying that was just taking you into like these destructive behaviors still. So without you going into like your full story, I'm just curious to know, like, what was like one thing for you that you discovered about yourself that was causing you to drink and to be in these destructive behaviors? But like, because I know trauma is like on a whole child.
Sure.
What was like one thing for you where you were just like, oh no, that has got to go. This is what's definitely causing me to like be in these destructive behaviors. I'm just curious to know about what that was for you. Or
for me, it was the fear of emotional pain. It was like, if I feel this, I might die. I don't know how I'll handle it. And I didn't believe that I had the strength to navigate emotional pain.
Okay. Is there one thing that caused that for you? Like for you to feel that way? Or a few things? Or
tons of things. Tons of things. Yeah. I think we learn, and I say we because I think this is the challenge for a lot of humans.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I think it's why so many of us have a fear of intimacy and vulnerability, is because we learn so quick, like probably before age 5, you know, and five's probably a little late. That's generous.
Yeah.
We learn that it's not safe.
Yeah.
It's not safe to cry. It's not
Mm-hmm.
safe to express. It's not safe to tantrum, you know, and those social norms, social cues get communicated real quick, you
Yeah.
know, and I don't think that they're communicated or implemented from a malicious place. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that parents are doing the best that they can,
Yeah.
and I think so many people learn early on before we even learn how to speak
Yeah.
that, you know, just being expressive and having these emotions just really puts you at risk for being hurt, harmed, or endangered. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I was just reading a book today,
Mm,
earlier in the afternoon, called I have it here. What did it call? Called Homecoming by
mm,
Vaughan Bradshaw, and he was talking about exactly what you just said. Just
interesting.
yeah. Have you heard of the book or read it before? No.
No, no.
So yeah, I can't even remember how I even ran into this book, but it was for me. I
Mhm,
was like, this
mhm,
like, and the book is about um just remembering or coming back to the inner child that's been wounded and hurt and traumatized,
mhm,
and
mhm,
coming back to the space of wonder before you were programmed with all of these things or like picked up all of these things, these negative
mhm,
fears and traumas and all of those things. And he was saying that exactly. He's like, you know, your parents, like for instance, if you were crying and your parents told you just not to, like, stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about,
mhm,
like those,
mhm,
using that sort of tone and those sort of words, it shuts
mhm.
you down. You're just like, okay, then I can't
Whoop.
cry, or I can't feel, or I can't.
Mhm,
And so when you say like you didn't want to feel, or you can connect with feeling
mhm,
your
mhm.
emotions, it's just it reminded me of that book, and I'm like, yeah, so many of us have been through that. Like, we don't know how to connect as adults and feel and be in our emotions, because like our parents, or some of us can relate to this, our parents were just like, don't cry, I'll give you something to cry about,
Mhm,
like, stop
mhm,
crying
mhm.
or you have nothing to cry about, so like, just shutting us down.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it shows up in our adult life,
for
and
sure.
still that little Peta or that little Katie, and that's
Mhm.
still operating in the same way. And you had
Yeah.
said that too, which was interesting when we were doing coaching together. You were saying the trauma, like whatever age you experience that trauma for you, is
Mhm.
the age you will continue to operate as in your adulthood. Like,
Yep.
if that trauma happened to you at 10, if you're 25, you're still operating from that 10-year-old, because you haven't
Mhm.
dealt with that trauma. It's still running your life.
Yep. Yep. 100%. And
That's,
that's why we say I encourage people to have so much compassion, right,
yes.
for other people, because you might look out into the world and see somebody who's behaving a certain way that you don't agree with, and they might be chronologically 30, 35, 40, 55,
Yeah.
60. Emotionally though, they might be 7,
Yeah.
you know, and this happens quite often. And
Mhm.
so that compassion, right, like
Yeah.
that, at some point that man or woman was a 7-year-old child
Mm,
who didn't feel seen, didn't feel heard, didn't feel loved, was never given the chance, you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
to be held and be intimate and be cared
Yeah.
for. And that's what you're bumping up against, right?
Yeah.
You're not bumping up against 35-year-old person. You're
Yeah.
bumping up against a 7-year-old that was super hurt, you
Yeah.
know, and didn't have the capacity to defend themselves or stand up for themselves in that moment, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, man. It's I feel like it's challenging being a human.
Oh yeah, for sure. And
uh,
that's why it's like learning. We came here to grow, is my theory. You
mhm.
know, like we didn't come here just, we. It's a game of what can I learn? What can I be curious about? What can I better understand about myself, about this person, about everybody? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um, and that is, such a journey.
It
You
is.
know, such a journey.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that in your coaching practices, that you offer this, and even as a friend, and just as a human being, you offer this concept of, that you just said, compassion. because it's sometimes hard to find when you're just in your shit and that person's in their shit and you're communicating as human beings. And I feel like compassion is one of the hardest for me. I guess I can only speak for myself, but I see it throughout humanity. Like compassion is one of those traits that's just really seems really challenging to embody and embrace and to offer to another human being.
Yeah.
So I love that you offer that in your coaching and in your just being a human, really.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, a lot of us never got to see compassion modeled.
Yeah.
You know? And that's and a big reason for that is because you can't give compassion if you don't have it for yourself.
Ooh, Katie.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so like if all I saw was mom judging herself, there's no space for compassion. You know, she literally might not even know how to access it. You know? And so having that awareness and again going back to grace, right? Going back to grace because it's like so many of us, like this was a moment, Peta, when I had my moment in the mirror and I was like, this is not the life you wanted and this is not who you came here to be. The reason I say it's so humbling is because it's like going all the way back to square one. And being like, this is where I'm at. This is how I got here. I know this isn't it for me. And I get to relearn from the beginning how this all works. You know? And that is so humbling, especially when you feel like you've done everything. And this is where I was at. I felt like I did everything I was supposed to do. You know, I got the degrees, I got the scholarships, I got the job, I got the man, I got the family, I got the house, I got the, you know, and it still was like, wait, you know, this wasn't in the fine print. And so letting ourselves be beginners, you know, and really understanding like, it's okay. Okay, it's going to be clunky at first. It's going to be messy. You're going to F it up. And that's okay. And then you're going to learn, you know? So,
And I think it's so important that you touched on that too, because for me, I'm discovering this as well. And not necessarily myself, but I see it in other people where people have all the materialistic things that make them successful, right? Quote unquote successful. And then they're still like human as fuck, where they're just like, I'm not enough. I am not this. I'm not this for this person. I'm not this for myself. I'm just a mess, right? And I will admit that I've, you know, put people on pedestals where I'm just like, oh, they have this and this and this. So that means they're like together. They got their shit together. They're good, you know. And then you meet them and that's because they don't ever meet your idols, right? Just in general that I've just or seen online or you know, seen from afar and I meet them and then you realize like, oh, that's not you. Like I thought I thought you were the person that you had portrayed yourself to be. But I feel like it's important for people to know that people are just human at the end of the day. Whether you are the president, doctor, a lawyer, whoever the people that you put on pedestals, whoever they are, they're human at the end of the day. Because if they F it up, then you're like, no, like that's not, then you're disappointed. And you're just like, no, they're human. You're not, and that's the thing too, like you're not these things. You're not your label. Like you're not this doctor, you're not this coach, like you're not all those labels. Who you are on the inside and your truth is who you really are, you know. So
and you're also not everything you think.
That too,
because we have a tendency to believe everything we think. Right? Like I am not enough, or something is wrong with me, or I didn't do it right, or I'm not ready yet, or that's not for me, or whatever that is, you know? And I had this moment last year, Peta, it was so powerful. I was on a vision quest, and the vision quest for anybody watching is like where you essentially go out into nature and you have nothing. You have water, you have some food, but you go fasted. And it's you and the earth, you know what I mean? And you don't have a tent, nothing like that. You have a sleeping bag and like, that's it. And I remember having a moment where I'm out in the middle of nowhere. This is uncharted land, like literally. It's like land that has not been mapped out, nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there on like day 2, and I'm all of a sudden I have this realization that like nature doesn't care. Like if something was to go down in the woods while I'm sitting there, nature is not going to ask for my ID. They're not going to ask what kind of degrees I have, what kind of car I bought, how much cash do I have on me, how nice have I been to people, like none of it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like literally, like what matters is how do I move in this moment? How resourceful can I be? What's my truth right now? Because this tree right here could just decide to fall over on me and I'm done. And the tree does not care.
No.
You know what I mean? And it's like it was the most leveling experience, because from that point, from the realization of like, none of it matters, I can choose what does for me.
Yeah.
You know? And that's a real place of empowerment.
Yeah.
Where you're like, you know what? I chose that. I chose these earrings. I chose that man. I chose this house. You know, like that's the power right there.
Yeah. Is that we have choice.
Yeah.
We have choice.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about you, speaking of the Vision Quest, because I was going to go into it, but you brought it up early. So I feel like you are one of those people that like to challenge yourself, like mentally, physically, spiritually.
Yeah.
And I so admire you for that, because I'm just like, I'm not going into the woods. Like, you don't need to go chill in the dark. Like, you know what I mean? But I do but truly I'm like, oh, I'm like, that's challenging as fuck. But you just jump in, like, you know, you're just like, that sounds challenging, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Like where does that come from? Maybe it's like the Taurus in you, but like where does that come from, the need to want to challenge yourself so you can just uplift? Because I'm not about that. I'm just not. Like I'm about the glamping. Like give me
100%.
Like 100%. That's right. Yeah. So
and this is, I love this question, and it's kind of layered for me.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely a part of my design. That whole risk taking, I wonder what's going to happen kind of thing, is definitely a part of my unique design. Because of the learner in me. Because I'm like, I wonder who I'll be when that happens. Right. Like when I took the job at the prison, right. The first day I got to the prison, they check you in, they look through all your bags, they scan you and all the stuff. They put me on a golf cart. Okay. It was a women's prison. One of the highest security prisons in the state for women.
Wow.
And they put me on a golf cart and they drive me like half a mile from the entrance.
Wow.
Okay. They don't give you a map, because they can't give you a map of the prison, because they don't want the inmates to have a map of the prison. Okay. So I'm literally going who knows where on a golf cart. And I get to this big cement building, and I have to press a button to get in. The guy looks at me. I'm new. I wave my badge, lets me in. They walk me into this big steel door opens. I step in. I'm in like a holding center, right? Door behind me shuts. I'm now in a holding center. The next door opens, big steel gate. They check my ID. I'm now locked into this building, and it's the administrative segregation unit for the women's prison. It's the highest level security unit in the state.
Wow.
They give me a vest, a stab-proof vest.
Wow.
And tell me that I need to wear a shield so that I don't get spit on. And in that moment, Peta, I'm like, how in the heck did I end up here? Of all the places, right? And in that moment, I'm like, what? And I'm kind of excited.
Okay.
Because I want to know what I'm made of.
Yeah.
Like there's something in me that's like, I really want to know. Like what's here? And you know, there's that saying, like, if you squeeze a lemon juice comes out. And I'm just like, if I squeeze, Katie, what comes out? You know, like what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And so those moments, right, are very, what I would call, and this is why it's layered, is because I find myself in these situations. I also know that my intuition plays a huge part. Like, if you would have told me that I was going to go fasted into the forest and sleep on the earth in a sleeping bag with no tent and no bathrooms and nothing, I would have been like, you lost your mind.
Yeah.
However, I found out about that about a week before it happened. And there was something in my system that was like, I got to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be there. I have zero survival skills in the woods,
Yeah.
like zero.
Yeah.
And so there's just something in me where I listen. And that's one of the most powerful things I think I learned through my life just falling apart, is that I came in having a very clear intuition and a very clear guidance system. And I can feel things coming from afar.
Yeah.
And that used to scare the heck out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be like, this is really uncomfortable because I'm feeling some things. And this is why I think a lot of people don't like to feel, is because once you start feeling a little crazy. You know, you start being like, I don't know why I don't trust that person, but I just don't trust that person. And maybe it's wrong for me to, am I judging them? Maybe it's wrong. Maybe I don't want to be mean, And then you find out like that they've done X, Y, and Z. It's like, oh, well, maybe I wasn't.
Yeah.
You know? So those things, right, is I listen to my intuition. If my intuition is off, and I know better now at this point in my life, I know better than to ignore it. When I start to ignore my intuition, life becomes struggle bus city. Like it just becomes real difficult. So I listen and I stay curious. Like, okay, here I am in this unit of a prison, and I've never worked in a facility like this to this degree of security before. I wonder what this is here to teach me. I wonder what I'm here to learn. I wonder what I'll find out about myself and these people, you know? And that's the perspective that I take. It's like, I wonder what's here for me, you know?
Right. Yeah, I feel like that's a gift to have, for sure. Navigating this life as a human is your intuition and listening to yourself. And that brought up two questions for me.
Yes.
One, what did you feel like you learned about yourself being in this system, or the jail system, being in that sort of environment? You did it for 5 years, right?
I did the jails for 5 years. I did the prisons for 2.
Oh, and then you did prison too. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You're up in there, Katie.
I was up in there. Yes, I was.
We're both like prison and jail with all women facilities?
So no, the jails were the boys. I was with the boys, and then the prisons, I was with the girls.
Okay.
I was with the women.
All right. Cool. So then you got to experience both genders.
Yeah.
So what did you learn about yourself being in that sort of environment? And two, question about intuition. Like, what do you feel? It could be just separate questions, but they just came up. So what do you feel is a good way for us to develop intuition to be able to listen more? So
Amazing. Yeah, love this. So first question, what did I learn about myself? I learned how to manage my energy and to really drop judgment, because I mean, at the jails, you never knew what you were going to walk into. You never knew, you know, and in the prisons, I had such a range on my caseload of women. I had women who were there for drug charges, and I had women who were there for multiple murders, you know, and had Lifetime movies made about them, and they're, you know, like major cases. And for me, it was like, can I bring myself to a place of compassion where I sit and I can see this other human who's had her life experiences, who's had her traumas, who's had her journeys, her loves and her losses, and can I see her for human beyond her story? And if I can give that grace, right, then I can get somewhere. We can get somewhere together. If I go in with my biases and I'm not managing my energy and I'm coming in with my own agenda, we're not getting anywhere, you know, because these are people who have been told by a system what to do, how, when, and for how long their whole lives. And so that is something that I learned about myself, was if I am walking into a crisis situation and I can stabilize my energy, I can literally become the anchor in that space.
Mm.
and immediately ground everybody and get everybody on the same page. And that was, that happened. That happened where I'm working with different people from different backgrounds, right? Doctors, COs, administrators, nurses, psychiatrists, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all there, and everybody's got to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be on the same page. Everybody's got their ideas. And so it's like, if I can center myself and ground my energy and pay attention to my body and pay attention to my facial expressions and really learn and see the long vision of where this needs to go, I can hold space and facilitate in a way that gets everybody on the same page, and everybody goes home on time, and everybody is safe and we're good,
Yeah.
So that's what I learned about myself, was really managing my energy.
Before you go into the other one, but did you have to learn that? Or was there experiences that happened where you're just like, man, I was not present today. I did not, because it affected this prisoner in this way? Or was it you already knew that, you already knew what you had to do? I have to be grounded and present and run in that.
That's one of the biggest things that they teach. And I would say that I had some of that already conditioned because of my history as an athlete.
Okay.
So I was, my role on a team was a leadership position on the team. And so I was a part of every single play. And if we were losing, I had to make sure that I didn't look flustered, and if we were winning,
Tell us the sport.
Oh, it was softball, and I was a pitcher. And so, I had to make sure, I had to do my best, and I was definitely not the best at it, I would imagine. I had to do my best to stay centered.
Yeah.
And I could see that if I got upset, the rest of my team would get upset. And so it's like, okay, well, I got to stay grounded. I got to stay present, And so I definitely think I had some training on that, but pre-college and professional training. But that is one of the things that they teach. They teach presence.
Yeah.
They don't run you through, I would say, the practices and the training, though, that's necessary to actually facilitate the execution of presence in an effective way. Right? You can have the idea of like, oh, I'm going to be present, right?
Yeah.
And then, you think present is still. And I've seen, people do this where they're like, I'm present. And you're like, no, you're just frozen. There's a difference. Like, present is not still. Present is like, I'm present with you. Like, all of my energy is here. I'm attuned to the entire environment. I'm listening to what you're saying, what you're not saying, what your body's saying, everything. And so it's definitely something that requires some deep training. And that's one of those things, right, where I was like, it was something that I really wanted to be good at. I wanted to be good at being present because there's so much information. The verbal communication is like 3 to 5% of communication.
Yeah.
The body is speaking so much louder. The tonality in the voice is speaking so much louder. The eyes are speaking, like everything is talking, and it's why when I get on a call, with a client or, a possible client, and they're like, "Hi, I feel like you really get me."
Yeah.
And it's like, I do, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're not saying. I'm listening to the words you choose, it's so deep, Yeah.
I think that's one of those things that make you, in coaching with you, being in your programs and doing one-on-one coaching with you, I think that's just an exquisite gift that you have. Like, I often remember just thinking back to our conversations or getting off of our calls, just really feeling seen and heard and understood. And I was like, that's all I've ever wanted. And I'm not, not every coach and not every, therapist and that hold space for other people are really good at doing that. And I think it's a gift that you have and you've mastered it, I feel. And
Thank you.
Props to you for that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
No, for sure. And now, so to, if you're complete with that, I'd love to know about any offerings you have on intuition, developing your intuition and learning to listen to it and connect with it on a deeper level.
Yeah. So there's this book called A Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
And in that book, there's like a 3 or 4 line sort of prayer that they talk about. And it is, it's made up of 4 questions. And the questions are, where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? So 3 questions. And that's where I started with my intuition. Is I started to literally ask myself questions. And this might sound really out there to people that are watching and they're like, what, you ask yourself questions? But really, ask yourself questions.
Yeah.
Like the simplest questions. What earrings should I wear? And what comes up? What should I eat? See what comes up, right?
Yeah.
Because when we can, and I put my hand on my heart because it's centering.
Yeah.
I close my eyes often because the eyes are the window for the ego, right? So if you close your eyes, that's why in meditation they ask you to close your eyes. You know, if you close your eyes, you can hear yourself better. And when I say hear, some people experience auditory; they'll hear things that are auditory, but it's almost like this activates your intuition, your gifts, and everybody has them.
Yeah.
It's just that so many of us have been conditioned out of them. And so I literally started that practice. And the second thing that I did that was so powerful that I still invite people to do, besides asking themselves questions, is journal. And I'm not talking about like journal, like today was fantastic because I had chicken and rice and, you know, that's wonderful. There's nothing against that. But I used to journal with God. And so I would sit and I would write God right on the journal, and then I would ask my question. And then I would close my eyes and I would listen and I would write the response, whatever. And it was like this dialogue, right? It's very similar to the book Conversations with God.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with that. When I picked up that book, I was like, I did this with God, you know? But we all have access to this inner wisdom, this inner knowing. And like so many of us, at least I'll speak for myself. Initially, I was afraid of this process. I was like, God might be real mad at me, you know, like, I don't know what's going to happen. But I had so many questions, you know. I was raised Catholic. I didn't identify as being Catholic anymore, but I definitely believed in God. I definitely believed in something bigger than me, you know, that was filling my lungs with air and keeping us on this beautiful, gorgeous planet. And so I was like, you know, I want to know. I want to know what happened and why and how and who and what do I need to do next and why bring me here and, you know, like all of these things. And so that practice was huge for me.
Okay, awesome. I first heard those questions because I use those questions for myself, like where would you go, what would you have me do, what would you say, and to whom. Yes, I first heard that from Preston Smiles, and because I believe he introduced that in our program. But I didn't realize I didn't know it was from A Course in Miracles. I just heard him say it and I was like, oh, yeah, those are great questions. So the questions, and then so journaling to a higher source.
Or anybody.
Okay.
Anybody. I mean, there's I think it's Carl Jung or Gestalt. I can't remember which psychologist came up with this, but there's this process where you can dialogue with another soul, like the higher self of a person. And your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and well-imagined reality. So we're the only species on the planet that can activate a total stress response in our body without a life-threatening stimulus present. So my body, if I'm triggered by something, can begin to feel like there's a really hungry lion in the room. Like it will begin to feel like my life is being threatened right now. When really I'm just about to have a conversation with somebody that I love, you know? And all of us have been there. Like, oh, I'm so nervous about this conversation. I feel like my heart is beating, or, you know, or that boss or whatever, whoever it is. And in this process, you know, we get to play with this gift that we have as humans. And so I encourage people, and this is how I healed so many relationships in my life, but you can have a dialogue with those people or that person, you know. And I would call my mom in, sit down, imagine she was sitting next to me, ask her questions, move seats, ask, speak from my mom's perspective. And it brings so much. It brings so much healing through, so much awareness through. This is really, Peta, honestly, it's funny that this comes up because it circles me back to compassion. And this is where that muscle got built of compassion. Because I could sit here and imagine that my parents are sitting next to me and I could ask them a question, and then I can move over and sit in their spot, and their responses would blow me away.
Really?
The responses that came through me would blow me away.
Yeah.
So really, really powerful.
Yeah. I've definitely done that sort of technique where call in my higher self and then call in the other person's higher self.
Yeah.
And, somebody just introduced that to me recently, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I was like, whoa, that exists? And then a part of me felt a little crazy because I was just like, is this real? Is this person really like, are they really responding in that way? Or is it just coming from me and my wants and needs? But it just came back to trusting, right? Trusting my intuition. That. But the process was very healing. I was like, yes, this feels good. And also it helps with just detaching from the situation and just really being present to your own experience of it and your own. But yeah, that's a powerful technique for sure.
Yeah. And the truth is that, so many people are not in a place to have a conversation that we might need to have.
True.
And I use this analogy quite often where it's like, I'll work with women that are like, but my mom can't have that conversation. And I'm literally like, you asking your mom to have that conversation is like me asking my dog to meow and being pissed off that he can't.
Yeah.
It literally, like, there's just, he doesn't have the capacity to meow. He can bark and he knows how to bark, and he will bark on command. He is great at it. So can I celebrate him? Can I celebrate my dog and his ability to bark and all of that? And can you celebrate your mom and her ability to be who she be?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that created so much space for me in relationships where like I'm no longer trying to get people to do things that they literally don't have the capacity to do. And it's okay. You know, if somebody came up to me and was like, hey, could you fly this rocket ship to space? I'm going to be like, hell no, I'm not. It's not me, and like, it's okay. Right. But then if they get pissed off at me because I can't, I'm going to be like, hey, this is silly. Like I just don't, it's not in my constitution to get you to the moon. I'm sorry. And I can teach you other things, we can go down different rabbit holes, but space ain't one of them, so like really, again, going back to that compassion of like, those conversations are super important, and that person doesn't need to be in the room with you physically in order for you to have that conversation. No,
that's real talk right there, because I've been through that a few times.
I think we all have, where it's like you just can't, or it's just not healthy for you to talk to that person. Like there's some people where it's just, you're not going to have a healthy dialogue, and that's okay. It doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make them wrong. It just means that you get to have that conversation in a different space.
Like, and then that's okay to have that conversation in that space, because
absolutely.
I feel, because a lot of people are probably stuck in those situations now, where like stuck at home, this quarantine, we're in this lockdown, where we're either stuck with people that we don't really want to be with, or we can't really, but you get to find that peace within yourself, they can't offer you what you need. So you have to find that within yourself, and how you can resolve that within yourself.
I posted a video of how to do it in my community called the Queendom a couple weeks ago, because I was like, this is important. So many of us are cooped up or quarantined in places with people, and this is a part of my self-care practice, right? Like I love self-care. I love the idea of like getting massages and all that kind of stuff. And also self-care for me is like the journaling, the conversations with people and their higher selves, the asking of powerful questions, the sitting with myself in silence and listening, that's all self-care for me. Self-care,
people. It's important.
So important.
Especially right now. It's important every day, all day. But being in I'm sure is challenging. And I feel like
Yeah.
the self-work is very vital to just being with yourself and knowing yourself and getting to know your intuition and listening. So thank you for that. That was all
Yeah.
so juicy. Thank you.
Yes, yes.